books, they have romance, they're adventures. What would you say the difference between just having like normal romance and romantic adventures would be? Like, what would you consider that to be, and how do you kind of balance the romance and the adventures in your writing?
Sure. So, it's a hard question. So romantic, for me, adventure is very, very important. So I think and I have a lot of brothers, and they read my books because they have to. And so every once in a while, when I get too much of a kissing scene, they're like, "Oh, can't you just put in a motorcycle or like some karate or something?" And so you'll see actually motorcycles and martial arts and various things interjected. And most of those scenes are brother initiated. If I'm writing, I can write pages of romance without a problem. Writing battle scenes is not my thing. I'm like, okay, what is it going to, and I have to actually have them act it out for me, and then I'm like looking at it. And so I think for me, putting in the adventure parts, it actually adds depth to the romance because you have possible death coming, and so it makes your romance a lot more intense. Like, we only have this moment to kiss, and then we have to jump into the ocean, So there's all kinds of things, that ramp it up quite a bit. So I think the difference between a romance book, which I also love just plain old romance books, and romantic adventures is, A, boys can read it too without getting too grossed out, and B, you can, the climax is the adventure. It's not that we're together finally. It's different. The end result is, yes, you can be together, or you might not be together, depending on who the author is. But your climax is more geared toward the adventure side than the romance side.
Yeah, that's a good answer, definitely. I think the only thing I'm going to add is, like, with pure romance, the main plot, everything revolves around this relationship between these two people. And the main plot is them coming together and how they are together. And, maybe in the beginning they start apart, and then they get together, and then they come apart again, and in the end they're together. But when you have adventure in there, you have to have that action, that mystery, or that thriller aspect also really play a large role. And you have to play them off one another. So you have a kissing scene, and then you have something great and adventurous. But it can also still be romantic. It's a difficult balance. But you can write romance all day long, right?
Yeah, that's easy for me.
So
that's the part I like.
I'm the opposite. I really love those action scenes. I love the fight scenes. They take a long time to write. And while I'm writing them, I think they are just horrible because it takes me about 3 hours to write one scene. I'm like, this is such a boring action scene because you're writing it and it's going very slowly. But then you read it and it's 1 page. 1 or 2 pages, and oh no, that was quick, that was okay. But when it comes to the romance, that's what really gets me. Like, how much is too much? Like you're saying, like who's going to get bored with this? Is it too much romance? Is it not enough? So that's where I struggle. So that's where I depend on my editor and agent to tell me more kissing or less.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I come from the romance genre. A lot of my original books were, and a lot of people think romance is predictable, but it's because it follows a very specific rules. It really does. It's the boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. So that is the story.
Right.
It can have lots of different forms, but when you add adventure to it, or there's another thing in romance, like there's romantic suspense, paranormal romance, and you always say, can I take the romance plot out, and do I still have a book? And if you still have a book, then it's not really a romance. So, I mean, I have romantic elements in the Falling Kingdom series, but if I took the romantic parts out, I would be sad. But but the book would still stay together.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say there. Yeah, but I do love writing romance, and I will always have a romantic plot in my books.
I love writing. It's just very difficult. It's hard. It's hard for me. I don't know why. Because I love it. I read lots of romance. And category romance.
Yeah.
I mean, Avon, Harlequin, good to me.
Yeah, I have a very, very romantic scene in book 3 between who. And I really glossed over it, because I'm like, this isn't a romance, and then my editor made me go back in and flesh it out. So I added like literally 2 more pages of just like romancy stuff, and then I'm like, in the margin, I'm like, just pull it out if
it's too much.
If this is too much, just you know, cut whatever you need, and I think it's all gonna be in there. So. But it's fun. I enjoy writing it. But I also like cutting off text too. So.
Yeah, we get a lot of there.
Cutting out the characters, that'll be exciting for me. The romance, not the cutting off the head.
Oh,
That's
right.
So this next question, it gets asked a lot. Every time an author or a show or anything has a strong female character, this kind of gets asked. But at the same time, there's a good reason it's asked, because we don't see this that much in media still. What do you do? How do you ever have to put conscious thought into this when you're creating your characters? How do you make strong female characters? Like, what do you do to make them strong without falling into the stereotypes of like, just, oh, I'm strong because I can fight?
Right. Muscles, I have muscles I can keep back, literally. No, I read a really great article about strong female characters, maybe about a month or 2 ago, about why are we still calling them strong female characters? Why do we need to? Because don't you just want a girl that you can look up to? And maybe she's strong physically, maybe she's just brave, but she could be so many things and still be a character that people can look up to. So I actually, when I was writing Beautiful and the Curse, I had those 2 sisters and they're complete opposites. One is physically stronger. She grabs a sword, she wants to be a demon hunter. The other one is not strong at all. She has no intent of picking up a sword or anything, and she just doesn't want to fight. It's not in her to fight. So maybe she wouldn't be viewed as a strong female character, but she's brave, she's intelligent, she's really smart, and she thinks about everything and solves a lot of problems. And I think that's a female character, even though she's not physically strong. She is someone people can look up to. And that her sister, who is a demon hunter, looks up to her older sister who isn't, because she can solve lots of problems. She uses her head, she uses her brain. So, I mean, I think you all are strong female characters. I've been hearing that so much. And I think just as long as you have a female character that you can look up to, that's what I want.
Yeah, I always think, I mean, strong female characters, you think, you know, a Buffy who can actually kick butt, but Xena, like someone like literally strong, but I think the strongest female characters are the ones who just know what they want and they go after it. They have a goal, and they have motivation, and they have confidence. And I mean, my favorite character is Cleo, Princess Cleo, and in book 1 she starts off as very like, she's the party princess, she's a little bit of responsibility, and through many tragedies and things that befall her, she really has to rise to the challenge and find her inner strength that she's really never needed before. So that's, and layers, adding layers to your characters, making them not just good, giving them unsavory features to balance it all out, and having your heroines not just care about if the boy likes her. I think it's really important to have other goals other than getting the guy.
That's
Helps to make a strong character.
Yeah, to do the right thing.
For me, it's not so much about strong female characters as it is about realistic female characters. Don't want to mention any names, but Transformers. I think it's easier for women to write good female characters than men. I think men just want a girl there, and they don't really develop her character in any way. Joss Whedon's the exception. He's really good at that. But that's hard. It's hard for, I think, you know, and maybe that's the same way the other way. We don't maybe write very realistic men, but I think that, yeah, we write nice men though. But yeah, I think it's just having that edge of realism. Your heroine doesn't have to be the biggest, baddest Xena character. She can just be a real girl, you know, that has real needs and real wants and real feelings. And a lot of times that's all glossed over, especially in male-dominated Hollywood, where you get very little real women characters or girl characters. So Yeah, I think that it's not so much the strength, I think the strength is just being, let's be honest, what women are and who women are.
So the next question kind of ties into that. I know when I was growing up, it took a long time before I started finding books with like realistic female characters I could look up to. What's the first book you recall reading with like, I'm just gonna use the term, a strong female character? And like, did it influence you at all?
I think the first one that comes to mind, and I don't know if she's the best example, but Nancy Drew. I read her. She, I mean, probably if I went back, I would be horrified. How not strong she is. But I mean, she solved mysteries. She went after clues. She did her thing. She had her boyfriend too. But and Trixie Belden, of course, also kind of the same thing. And then as an adult, I started reading probably the pops into my mind. I mean, it's probably not YA appropriate whatsoever, but the Anita Blake series, if you've ever read that, Anita Blake, Vampire Hunter. She was super strong. And, yeah, I really enjoyed her character, so she was definitely an influence.
Growing up, I read a lot of what you would call literary fiction. I stuck to Babysitter Club books, Teen High, what was it, those Sweet Valley Twins? Sweet Valley High, Twins first and then the High. And so I read a lot of those kinds of books.
Were those strong heroines?
Those,
Jessica and Elizabeth?
you know, honestly, I can't remember. I really don't know. I'm sure if I went back and I read it again, I'd just be shaking my head the whole time. But one book I did read as a kid, or maybe I was a teenager, that really stuck with me was Bridge to Terabithia. Has anyone read that? And then there is a movie. I haven't seen the movie. I sort of don't want to see the movie because I don't want it to ruin the book. I don't know if it does, but so it was the first book that really taught me first about death. That it was the first book that I read that where I had to, grasp the death of a main character. That main character was a girl who was just really amazing because she didn't really fit in with the girls that she went to school with, and the guy that she befriended, Jess, the other main character, really didn't fit in with his role as a boy either. So they were both very different, but they came together and they were able to understand one another. And I thought she was really brave as a girl, and I think she was in elementary school or maybe 6th or 7th grade. To do her own thing, she wasn't going to conform. She was just going to be her own person. And I thought that was, she was a very interesting character. So that's her.
I think the first female kind of book, heroine book that I read was probably Little House on the Prairie series, Laura Ingalls, and so she was very impressionable on my young mind. And then another one I really remember was Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott O'Dell, and that little girl surviving on the island all by herself. So those were probably the most memorable female characters when I was young.
Okay. And then in a similar vein, what sort of books do you remember reading that kind of influenced you in your life growing up and maybe influenced what you chose to end up writing?